Well, I know there's a lot to talk about, so I kind of just want to start with your story first, because obviously you've done a lot in the TV business and founding a TV network's a pretty big deal. So, how did E Entertainment Television come about? Of course, with your co founder.
Well, I after college, I ended up getting what I thought was going to be a temporary job working in New York City for the cable company there and working underground, splicing the wires together and stuff. But then I kind of cable became popular, and I kind of rose up the ranks at a reasonably early age, and I ended up being the head of operations of the cable company in Manhattan. And it was the only cable company that was built underground in the United States. Everything else was on telephone poles. And then when big cities began to issue franchises for cable companies, they were insisting that the cables go underground. Well, somebody won the franchise for Los Angeles and they needed someone who knew how to build underground. So I got recruited. So, you come out to LA, you're a Brooklyn kid, and everybody's going to parties and premieres and all of this stuff. But I started with the studios, saying to them, while I was still at the cable company, saying, look, the best part of a movie and that makes me want to go to a movie is the movie trailer. And I don't see it unless I'm in the movies. I said, it kind of seems ass backwards, and wouldn't you want people to see it while they're in the house to make them want to go to the movies? And they were like, well, it's too expensive. I said, okay, tell you what, I'll put the trailers on television, but you invite me to all those parties. And they did it. And when we did research, what's your favorite channel? People go, oh, I love MTV and ESPN. I love that trailer channel. And I'm going, okay, I get the best 2 minutes of a $50 million movie for free, and people love it. So the company I worked for, they actually sold out and went back to Canada. And, I was not going to go from New York to LA to go to Canada. I was kind of done with the cold. So my friend Alan and I were just kicking around ideas. And, at that time, MTV was pretty new and stuff. So we said, hey, why don't we do MTV of the movies? Was MTV was music and nobody was really covering movies in a very pop culture kind of way. You had kind of had stiff shows that were intellectual and stuff, and that's not really what the audience was looking for anyway. And so we came up with the idea and we wrote a business plan and we thought we were brilliant. But at that time, the start of TV network was somewhere between 60 and $100 million. And after 3.5 years of not raising 10 cents, we were kind of ready to throw in the towel when we met an investment banker on Wall Street who had just taken over investment banking for his company. And, we went in and pitched him and, he goes, oh, I love this. I used to be the entertainment reporter for my college newspaper. And we were like, yeah, 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 and he said, I love it and I'll give you money. Come back this afternoon. And, I was like, okay, could you make it more like the 100 million than the 60 so we can do everything we want? And he was like, well, I'm only allowed to sign for two. And I'm going like, what are we supposed to do with two? It costs, 100 and maybe 60. And, but, we said, you know what, we didn't raise any money. Fine, we'll take it and we'll figure out what to do. And so we did. And I had a friend who was teaching radio, television, film in University of Texas in Austin. And I called him up and said, do you have kids that need intern jobs? And he said, yeah, we got a lot this summer. And I said, send them all. And literally just rented apartments in Hollywood and bought mattresses. And so he actually started with 11 employees and 31 interns.
Wow. And that's just shocking considering just how big of a brand it's become. Because when I think entertainment, reality, I think E, which is just incredible to see that growth. And so, how rapidly did E grow from that point?
Well, as soon as we launched, everybody was like, "Oh my God, that's what you wanted to do. We would have given you that money 3 years ago." And we're like, "Oh God." Um, but for us, it was a natural. If you go back to that time in the cable industry, you could look at it and you say cable TV is basically an electronic newspaper. CNN is the headline, ESPN is the sports, a shopping network with the ads. What was noticeably absent was the entertainment pages. And So that's kind of what we set out to do. And, we were the fastest growing network in cable. Then I think the first year we were in 14 countries. Now E is in 142 countries. Um, so, it's arguably the greatest influencer of pop culture in the world.
And then obviously at some point down the line, that sale happened to NBC Universal, which currently owns the network. And so what was
Yep.
NBC Universal's interest in it?
Well, it was obvious that we were going to be a very important part of, the cable lineup scene and stuff like that. And, Comcast was the original, they were one of our original partners, from the beginning. And then Comcast bought Universal and then they bought NBC. And, so they had a little bit and they wanted to own the whole thing. And at some point, they just made us an offer we couldn't refuse.
And kind of talk about the changes in just the cable TV market now, because a lot of that entertainment content, it's kind of went digital. And so the cable network, you're going to see a lot of, original shows and then maybe some reruns. I recently was watching Modern Family on E. I greatly appreciated that. But kind of talk about the industry changes and just how the network has evolved.
Well, I think, today I would not start a linear TV network. I mean, you get to this very simple equation. Do you want to watch what you want to watch when you want to watch it? Or do you want to watch what NBC wants you to watch when they want you to watch it? We all know the answer. So I think, with the growth of digital and, a non-linear presentation of stuff, I would do it very differently today and stuff. I think a lot of companies, particularly public companies, are kind of stuck in this thing where they really can't just make a total move over to nonlinear digital because they've got so much invested in infrastructure and overhead that no CEO of a big company is going to walk into his boardroom and say, "Hey, I'm planning on writing off $5 billion worth of equipment this month." So you have things like that are kind of holding back kind of the entire transformation. So little by little, all these networks are moving into a hybrid. So yeah, they're linear in one way, but they're nonlinear in another. And you could get e-content and e-news and all that stuff, and on demand now. And so it'll all move to that direction. I mean, what really needs to be time anchored, sports and news and nothing else. I mean, you like Modern Family, and you want to watch it when you want to watch it, and you want to watch it on a device you want to watch it. Sometimes it's your phone, sometimes it's your pad, sometimes it's your laptop, and then sometimes it's a TV. So you really need to be all of those.
Despite the fact that streaming and linear are different, people are all coming for the same thing, which is content. And so just kind of talk about the content evolution, because I know for a fact reality shows are still, even after the changes between linear and digital, that's still a big thing people come for. And so how is that going to play a role in the future?
Yeah, well, we're accused, rightly or wrongly, as being the ones who brought the reality to television, way back then. I mean, with things like Talk Soup and Howard Stern and stuff like that. Those were the early reality shows and stuff. And there's an insatiable appetite. Either people want to see people who are like them or not like them. And people like to look at train wrecks. They want to see, restaurants that can't open on time, and people that fall out with their spouses, and that's never going to change. That's human nature. So again, you just need to give it to people in a form and a time that they want to digest it.
Must see TV is one of those terms I hear and I just immediately think linear. And so it's that feeling, it's going to be kind of difficult to translate in a way because we're so used to prime time television. But it seems like streaming, people are just okay with kind of losing that must see aspect.
Yeah, and quite honestly, there's so much good stuff on now that if I were to want to jump back into that game, I would look at creating kind of a guide to all the stuff that's on, because there's amazing stuff on. I mean, the one good thing that came out of COVID was that used to be people would think that if you're a filmmaker, you're at the top of the pile, And if you do TV, you're in the middle. And if you do, digital content, you're like at the bottom. Um, but it forced people to start watching Netflix. And then people were watching it going, oh my God, they got some pretty good stuff here. And then when Netflix started doing good, then Disney said, we'll do our own. And Paramount said, we'll do our own. And HBO said, so you've got, a whole bunch of really robust channels now. And, for a creator, the form is much better. Um, I've got stuff that I wanted to do. My first thought was do it as a film. And, when you got to try and really write the scripts, you go, geez, this story is so deep and rich, I could never really develop the characters in, 120 minutes. But when you get into that limited series form and you got 8 or 10 episodes, you could really be creative and create characters that are deep and rich and stuff like that. So from a producer, creator point of view, it's been wonderful.
We were talking about how during COVID things changed to everyone just streaming whenever they wanted. But I can recall pre-COVID, it was all about live television, and that was a big thing too, especially on E, which was kind of those live shows in the morning. And so obviously things changed drastically. And so how do you
Yeah.
think that's going to become a new thing in the streaming era?
Well, I think, again, the only things that really need to be live are sports and news. You know, watch the Kardashians in the morning, watch them in the evening. What's the difference? Um, uh, so it really is about that human drama. It's about connecting to the characters or not connecting to the characters and thinking they're weird and stuff, but it makes you keep coming back. And I think it's all not about time anchoring stuff. It's give people what they want when they want to watch it.
And you had just mentioned that you become more of a creator because of not having all those restrictions. And so talk about life as a creator.
Yeah, well, you take stuff like I do a lot of stuff in Asia, and I found this great story about the first woman to rule China, actually the only woman to ever rule China. And so I found a book, and I bought the book rights. And again, I was thinking of doing it as a feature film. And I hired a great writer, Academy Award winning writer who wrote Rain Man and Joy Luck Club and things like that. And, after 3 years, we still were not happy with the script because, her story started when she was 14 and taken as a concubine, and it ends when she's 72 and she leaves the palace. And there's a lot of stuff in between. So you never really got to develop the stories. You never really got to develop the characters or make people love them or hate them. Yet you want to create some sort of emotional connection to the characters and stuff. But now with the streamers, I can't tell you where it's landed, but it's going to be on a streamer, and it's going to be Game of Thrones. 8 episodes a season for 4 seasons. So and that's 32 episodes, and you could really develop characters in that kind of form.
And the thing is, I don't think the audience has enough appreciation for the behind the scenes effort that goes in because we see a show, we like it, we click on it, but kind of speak to the process of even getting a show off the ground.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to start with a good concept and stuff, and then the key is getting writers who really can develop a story that's compelling and stuff like that. And once in a while, I'm that person, but sometimes I just bring in people that are better at a genre than I am, and and then you gotta uh, storyboard it. You gotta come up with a PowerPoint presentation. A lot of cases, you gotta kind of develop a little proof of concept sizzle reel, and then you go out and you got to pitch it, and now there's a bunch of people to pitch to, so and they compete for stuff. So if you've got good stuff and you've got a track record, they have to feel comfortable that if they say yes, you're going to deliver, and you're going to deliver on time, and you deliver a quality product. So that for me is kind of my past history, so that's behind me. I don't have to prove myself uh, to these networks anymore. But still, it's a long process. Like you take Empress, the story that I was talking about. We were going to start it, and then the Hollywood strikes happened, and there's just in terms of contracts with actors and directors and stuff like that. There's like 300 contracts. And then the strikes happen, and now you got to reschedule everything. That means you got to redo 300 contracts. And then people's schedules. So this one is now taking a job here and that one's taking a job there. And how do you bring it all back together? So, a project like that, just to shoot it, I mean, if we start shooting at the end of this year, which is what we hope for, it won't go on till mid to late 26. I mean, it's not easy to get these things done.
Yeah, and that just kind of speaks to the work ethic too, on top of it. And we talked about how you got your start in this business, getting your foot in the door. And so, my question to you is what advice would you give to the next generation of folks that are going to be entering this industry and having to prove themselves?
Well, I think, I've got this long history with interns. I mean, he was built on interns, um, which was fortuitous because not just for the work, but to have people around who are essentially going to be the audience. So that gave me, a lot of sounding boards, to say, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. And they go, no, my generation doesn't like that. And so getting an intern job, I mean, if you look at our company now, there's no one who works in our company that did not start as an intern. No one, zero.
And is there anything else you'd like to add or just want people to know?
No, I think, you've got to look at, everybody asks me what's coming next. I mean, not necessarily for me, but in the industry. I think you got to look at artificial intelligence and stuff like that. I'm a great believer in AI and all the new technologies, NFTs and blockchain and, crypto and all that. It's going to be part of the fabric. No one thing dominates everything, but they're all part of the entire picture. And particularly with AI, I give this example. There were strikes worried about AI going to take people's jobs and stuff, and AI will take over jobs that most people don't want to do anyway. But creative jobs it doesn't replace. You still have to be the input source for a lot of that. If I would write a synopsis for a TV series, I mean, it would take me 5 days to write up. Now I use GPT-4 and it takes me 30 seconds and it comes out 90% the way it's supposed to. And I spend an hour editing. So, instead of 5 days, it's now taking me less than one day. And it gives me 4 more days to either do more work or hang out with my kids or learn how to cook or do whatever I want. I mean, how could you not like that?
Larry Namer, co founder of E Entertainment Television, thank you so much for joining me.